How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer coming at you with another video. So I finally finished God of War 2018 for the PS4 this morning after playing through it for, what has it been now? 2 weeks? It's been a while. So I did promise that I would put out a quick little review on it now. I took some notes. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this game for a number of reasons. Although it is pretty relevant, I guess you would say, because Ragnarok is coming out in a couple of days. As far as the game itself is concerned, I'm about 4 years late to the party, right? So I just want to sort of preface this, start out by saying I'm not new to the God of War series. I played through the original God of War on the PS2 a couple of years ago. And it's funny because I thought, for the longest time, I thought that I would not be a fan of this style of game. And I was hooked on this from the initial boss encounter where you're on the boat, and I can't remember what it is. It's almost like a leviathan or a lizard. It's really cool. Really enjoyed this game. And then shortly thereafter, I got into God of War 2. Now, I didn't get too far into this. I had other games on the go, and I just never returned to it. So I would like to return to this, absolutely, and we'll talk about that maybe towards the end of the video. I do have God of War 3, which some would say is the best in the series. For the PS3, I picked this up at the thrift store not long ago, maybe a year ago, about $5. And I also have God of War Origins Collection. So it's got Ghost of Sparta and Chains of Olympus, which I believe were originally PSP exclusives. And there's another God of War collection you can get for the PS3 as well. I don't have that. Which brings us to God of War for the PS4. Now, I knew that this game was incredibly hyped. I remember watching the Jeff Keighley Awards, the video game awards, back in, 2019? Maybe later half of 2018. And I thought for sure that Red Dead Redemption 2 was going to clean up the awards and win Game of the Year. And when I watched it live, when I saw that God of War beat out Red Dead Redemption 2, I, like a lot of you out there, was kind of scratching my head. But I should have held my reservations until I played the game, because it's not fair for me to assume. But anyone who's played through Red Dead Redemption 2, that's just an incredible game. Not just any studio could put out a game like that. You'd have to have a Rockstar Studios that would spend years and years and years curating and developing an experience like that. A lot of money involved. It's just an absolutely just incredible game, absolutely. I'd like to return to it one of these days. And so that brings us to God of War for the PS4. So I picked up a PS4 not that long ago. I can't even remember when I picked it up. Maybe it was earlier this year, around February. And ever since then, I've been having a lot of fun with it. God of War is relatively cheap to pick up. You can pick it up for $15-20, which is surprising because a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, 4 years later, is still not on sale. That game is still full retail when you go to Walmart. So, again, recently I was talking to somebody who was actually playing God of War on the PC, and he reiterated to me, he's like, dude, you gotta play God of War. It's absolutely incredible. It's a great experience. I'm like, okay, fuck it, I'll check it out. So I went to the pawn shop couple of months back, and I found God of War. I think I paid $15 for it. Greatest Hits, Platinum PlayStation Hits Collection. And I started playing it. So what I did was I made a list here, and I'm going to go through them as quickly as possible. We're already at the 5-minute mark, and we'll talk about it. So, yeah, after playing God of War 2018, can I now understand why it beat out Red Dead Redemption 2 for Game of the Year? I think so. I didn't realize God of War was so huge in scope. Santa Monica Studio really tried to make this sort of a magnum opus, if you will. And it's just on such a larger, big budget scale than the original God of War games, which, by the way, the original God of War games are no slouch. They look absolutely incredible. Some of the best looking games on the PS2. But yeah, God of War 2018 is just on another level. So what we'll do here, I'm going to go through the positive takeaways first, and then we'll get into some of the negatives, and then we'll sort of wrap things up. Again, I wish I could spend more time talking about it, but I don't want this to turn into a 30-minute video. So after finally completing the game this morning, about 18 chapters, some of the positive takeaways. So right off the bat, graphics and presentation. No doubt about it, this is one of the best looking games, if not the best looking game on the PS4. It's absolutely, again, incredible. It does look every bit as good as, say, a Rockstar game like Red Dead Redemption 2. Possibly even better. You know, there's an argument to be had right there. Presentation, movie-like aesthetics, the way that the camera angles swoop in and out, the way that the cutscenes are a part of the gameplay, one in each other. You know, it doesn't sort of cut out from the cutscene and then start. Red Dead was the same way, but yeah, it looks really good in God of War. Top-notch presentation, absolutely. No bones about it. Santa Monica Studio is one of the best in the business. I didn't realize that must be a huge studio. There must be a lot of people that work there. Some of the moving parts and some of the architecture that you see in this game, they must have had some architects involved with developing this open world, because some of the stuff just blows your mind. You would have to have a lot of talking heads involved to create some of the things that they created in this game. Absolutely incredible. Another positive takeaway, semi-linear open worlds. The reason why I say that is because you could classify it as open world, but it's not truly open world. It is very similar to like an Alan Wake or The Last of Us, where you can explore quite a bit, but you're very much on a kind of a rail, if you will. You can't go too far out past the boundaries of where the rocks are and the trees and things of that nature. And look, I'm fine with that. I've made no secrets about it. I've had open world fatigue for a number of years, and that's why I enjoy these games that are kind of like open world, but with a more of a linear approach to it. So I really did enjoy that aspect of the game. Short loading times on my PS4 Pro. I didn't find that the game loaded that bad. I thought it was relatively quick, especially if you die and you respawn. Not too bad at all. I found a lot of times there was not really any music at all during the gameplay. Like if you were in your boat, you could hear the water and you could hear the dialogue between Atreus and Kratos, but there was no ambient music. Sometimes games will constantly have music throughout the game no matter what you're doing. And I'm actually not necessarily a big fan of that. I like to have absolute silence and just be able to hear the environment. And I commend Santa Monica Studios for taking that approach. I think that was an excellent idea. Whoever thought that out, let's just take away the ambient music altogether and just have no music. I thought that was an excellent design choice. Absolutely. I wish more studios would do that. The controls were perfect. There was absolutely no issues with the controls. Everything was easy to figure out, easy to navigate menus, very simplistic controls, no issues at all with that. And then just the sheer amount of content within this game. So it's just such a massive game in scope. I beat the game, but I haven't even scratched the surface as far as other stuff there is to do. It's my understanding there's another part of the game called the Valkyries. I don't know if I'm going to really go that far into it. And I'm not even quite sure if there's DLC content. But this is a massive game. And buying this game at full retail, I don't see that being an issue back in the day based on the amount of content you're getting. But paying $15 to $20 for this game, that in itself is just a whole nother conversation. Because now you're getting all of this content, and I paid next to nothing for this game. So incredible bang for your buck. And we're sort of going to talk about that towards the end of my review here as well. That's going to come back as well. So let's get into the negatives. So the first negative I want to talk about is actually the graphics. So once you start to play the game a bit more, this could be more of a hardware constraints as far as the PS4 is concerned, but you do start to notice a lot of lighting issues where you'll step into one scene and you'll see a shadow, and then you step over a bit and the shadow pops off the screen, and textures that are popping and morphing and things of that nature. I don't know if that's necessarily the game's fault. as it is maybe hardware constraints. I haven't played this game on a PS5, so I can't confirm. But once you start to play the game more, you start to see some of the cracks in the ice. No pun intended, but I think another missed opportunity would have been the water effects. There's no transparency effects in the water, and I think even John Linneman had mentioned this back in the day on their DF analysts review of this game, but there's no transparency effects in the water, and I think that's a missed opportunity. Oh, and I hate to jump back, but for positives, one of my favorite things about this game was being in the boat, exploring in the boat. I thought that was a lot of fun. Sorry about that. Back to the negatives. So yeah, no transparency effects, but I think maybe that has to do with that special effect being too expensive for this style of game. If they would have made the water transparent, it probably would have been too much of a burden on the hardware, and it may have affected frame rate. So that's probably why they did that. The father and son story-driven narrative. I wasn't sold on this idea even before I played the game, and now that I've played it, I can even confirm it. I wasn't emotionally invested in this father and son story that Santa Monica Studio was trying to build up here. Just an incredibly cringy narrative, cringe to the max. I found the voice acting was absolutely atrocious. I think Kratos, whoever voiced Kratos, did an okay job. But his son, oh my fucking god, could you pick a worse actor? And this is the problem with big budget video game releases. Video games still are not at that level yet as far as being comparable to a major motion picture film. They're just not at that level as far as voice acting is concerned. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. I did talk to somebody about this, and they agreed with me. And if you think that I'm being irrational with this, or you don't agree with this statement, that's fine. I get it. We're living in the year 2022. Inclusion, breaking walls down, stereotypes, all the rest of it. But I just find when you're playing a game like this, and again, this is just my opinion, but you have Kratos who's being voiced by an Australian or a New Zealand actor, you can tell. And then you got his sidekick, the little head that he wears on his waist, who sounds like Martin McNeil. He's Irish. And then you've got the witch, and she sounds like she's British. And then you've got Atreus, and he sounds like a bratty little American kid. It's all over the map, okay? Is it possible? Sure. But I think it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It's just weird. You see that in movies all the time, too. You know, you'll watch a movie where everybody in the movie has a British accent, but then you'll see just like maybe one or two actors or actresses in the movie that have like a North American voice or something that's just jarring for what it is. That, I don't know how to explain. That's how I feel. I'm not saying everybody in the game has to be, you know, North American, no accent whatsoever, but it's just, I don't know. Maybe make them all with an English accent, or maybe make them all with a New Zealand accent. Why do you have to mishmash everything together like that? It just feels disjointed. That's my opinion, okay? I'm not trying to ruffle anyone's feathers with that statement. I just find it's just, I don't know. It's odd. It's really odd. Maybe Kratos, you know, fucked a goddess that was from Los Angeles, and that's why his kid doesn't have an accent. I don't fucking know. Yeah, speaking of Atreus, he comes off as incredibly bratty. I don't like his character model. I think he looks absolutely bratty. Just annoying. Extremely immersion breaking. And that's my biggest fault with this game. I find Atreus ruins it for me. It breaks the immersion. The whole time I was playing the game, it bothered me. It really bothered me quite a bit. And I think that's why I probably won't pick up the new God of War. It bothered me that much. I understand why they have Atreus in there. It gives Kratos somebody to bounce off of as far as conversation is concerned. But I think they could have just had the game with Kratos and that little guy on his belt. I don't think they needed to have his son in there. It really bothered me, but that's just personal taste. I think if you're younger, if you're like 16 years old or 17 years old and you're playing God of War 2018, it might not bother you as much. You might be more invested in the story and the characters. But for me, I wasn't invested in any of this. I also found the game was extremely grindy, a tad too long, especially the second half. Limited enemy variation. I found like I was fighting the same enemies over and over and over again. Again, I was not invested in the weapon and armor upgrades and combos. I found myself just upgrading these things in the menu just for the hell of it, and I wasn't even looking at what I was upgrading to. I never used the map. I always just followed the arrow. Weird difficulty spikes. I tried playing the game on normal, and it was pretty easy for the most part, but then you'd encounter a boss that was way too difficult, or maybe it was just me not wanting to spend the time learning its patterns. So I ended up playing majority of the game on easy, and I still had difficulty quite often. The inclusion of puzzles in the game, I thought a lot of times it was sort of annoying, stupid puzzles. A lot of times I went online just to find out how to get around them so I could get on with the game. The aesthetics of Kratos, I think he looks absolutely ridiculous in this game. I think he looked a lot better in the older games, to be honest with you. I don't know why they had to make him look like the Big Show. I didn't like the way he looked whatsoever. But the biggest negative to me was Atreus. Just so annoying. I just wanted to punch him right in the face. I didn't like the way his character even moved on screen. Stupid facial expressions, all the rest of it. I get it. Santa Monica Studio was looking to sweep up the awards on Emmy night. I get it. And so they went with the sappy father-son, cringy as fuck narrative. But I really didn't like it at all. So for me, a really fun game hindered by a terrible story-driven narrative that involves a cringy, non-playable character, which, by the way, he assists you with his bow and arrow, and all it is you pressing the, the square button on the controller, and he just shoots his arrows. Wherever you point your axe is where Atreus shoots his arrows. It's so gimmicky. There's no skill involved with that implementation, that gameplay implementation, can't even speak. I think it would have been better if Kratos had a bow and arrow. I think that would have been a lot better. And for fuck's sakes, Team Santa Monica Studio incorporated QuickTime events in this game. You think we'd be beyond QuickTime events. And they even got lazier with it. Back in the original God of War games, there'd be multiple button presses involved. You'd have the X, then the square, then the circle, then the triangle. This one here, not even. When you have a QuickTime event, it's just telling you to hit one button. And that's it. So that could be a positive or a negative depending on what you think of QuickTime events. But I don't think they really reinvented the wheel as far as this game is concerned. I think a lot of people got suckered into the sappy story-driven narrative. And this game does feel like a video game version of one of those corny, cheesy Marvel DC Universe movies that are in the theaters all the time that I can't fucking stand. And this plays out like a video game version of one of those movies. Pick your poison. So, would I recommend this game? For $15, yes. There's enough gameplay here that it's worth it. Full retail, no. Am I going to play this game again? Probably not. Am I going to keep it? Probably. It's a conversation piece in the collection. I don't know. We'll see. Look, it's an incredible game as far as visual aesthetics are concerned. Incredible set pieces. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing the fact that it can be fun to run around in this open world. What I'm saying is, and this is just me personally, I found Atreus ruined the game for me. It was an immersion breaking issue I had with the game. And the whole time I was playing the game, I wanted to kill Atreus. I wish I could have been able to play the game without Atreus. It bothered me that much. And I can only imagine how annoying he is in Ragnarok now that he's got a prepubescent, squeaky teenager voice. I can only fucking imagine. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the game. I had an okay time with it. I spent more time with it than I wanted to. And I'm glad that I've seen it all the way through so I can move on to something else. So, if I was scoring it out of 10, what would I give it? Maybe a 6.5, maybe a 7. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10, and I wouldn't say it's better than Red Dead Redemption 2. So those are my thoughts on God of War. I know it's a polarizing opinion. If you don't agree with my opinion, that's fine. I just sort of wanted to get this out there because I put enough time into this game. I thought it was reasonable for me to at least tell you what I thought of it. So we'll cut it off there right around the 26-minute mark. Long-ass video. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.